Peace Clan is also bringing up Jim Knowles bending a little bit and coming to the approach of possibly implementing a slot safety to be just another cornerback of sorts. What's the rhetoric that's been out there?
Well, we didn't really see any of that in the spring, except for when Jihad Carter went down and they moved Jair Brown and Ryan Turner to nickel. That position has to be able to defend like a corner, but it also has to be able to handle tight ends and handle the run. Obviously, it has to be a position that can cover a slot receiver, and so there are going to be corner tendencies. But for anybody saying like it should just be Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock, and Davison Igbinosun, we didn't see that at all in the spring. Those three guys stayed on the outside exclusively. The only two corners that went on the inside were Jair Brown and Ryan Turner, and I think Jair Brown, I've said it since before I saw him there, I think he could do very well there. So, that may occur, but right now they really like Cam Martinez. They really like Jihad Carter. And so, we'll see in fall camp if we get to watch any practices in fall camp, and that's always an iffy proposition. I know they've talked about it, but like I said, the only things we've seen of that in action would be Jair Brown as the number 2 nickel once Jihad Carter went down, and Ryan Turner as like the number 3 nickel after that as well.
I do believe we're going to have a third corner on the field at various times, maybe in certain, third and long pass situations where they have to put an extra receiver on the field in those situations to get downfield. So I think that you will see it from time to time, and it may very well be the third guy between Igbinosun and Hancock and Burke. You didn't see it at all last year because they rarely had 2 healthy corners to begin with to even think about putting a third one out there. I mean, Jair Brown got a little bit of run here and there, but mostly in relief of one of the starters. So he may have even started a game at some point in there just
game
because
4.
Yeah, they were so thin with guys getting dinged up last year. So I think you will see it at times, but I don't think it becomes the base. I think that's more of an exotic situation. I think that you would go to in a specific situation on the field, down in distance, however you want to put it, maybe red zone, I don't know. But the coaches, Jim Knowles has coached a lot of football. And I think that the resonating fact comes back on Jim Knowles is there were a lot of people who watched him at Duke and Oklahoma State said the first year will not be his best. And if last year is the worst he's going to do at Ohio State and they still went 11-2 and made the playoff, then I think we can all live with that. They said by the second, third, and fourth year, the scheme takes hold and the defense really starts to put the clamps on people. And his last year at Oklahoma State, I think they lost the Big 12 championship game. I think it was 21-16, I think was the final score. They lose to Baylor, get upset, I believe, in that championship game 2 years ago. And you give up 21 points, you ought to beat anybody that you play. So to me, I'm on board with Jim Knowles, and we'll see how it goes this year. But I'm emboldened by what others have said about the direction his defenses take.
Did somebody tell Ryan Day that it was going to take 2 or 3 years for Jim Knowles' defense to take hold?
I don't know.
I do remember Jim Knowles talking about how it took me like 5 years at Oklahoma State, and I know I don't have 5 years here. I don't have that long to do it here. You've got like 2 years, and yeah, we'll see. I do expect them to be much better. And Jim, get back to the nickel. I know Buckeye fans, they have their issues with Cam Martinez because of the Michigan game, and then a couple of other situations last year. But he was arguably the best player in the secondary in the spring, outside of maybe Denzel Burke. Like he was really, really good in the spring, making plays, pick sixes, and things like that. And you'll say, well, against bad quarterbacks, maybe. But he was out there making plays. Jihad Carter and Cam Martinez has also repped at cornerback throughout his career, to give you an idea. And then also Jihad Carter, I talked to an NFL scout last year. Their team was looking at him. They knew of teams that were looking at him as a corner as well. And he's got good size, 6 foot, 200, So he's played every single position in the secondary at Syracuse. So he has coverage skills as well. So they may not need to go to just a strict corner. And I do think if you're going to play, 14, 15 games or whatever, I expect all three of Jordan Hancock, Denzel Burke, and Davison Igbinosun to do some sort of rotating. Because if you have three starting corners and you have three guys that are good enough to start at Ohio State, you can't leave one of them on the sideline. And with as injury prone as those guys have been, you don't want to put too much on them. You want to give them some breaks. That was one of Kerry Combs' greatest contributions to Ohio State, not just the recruiting, but the way he rotated. And every coach since then and before then, like Jeff Hafley couldn't get, he didn't want to do it. And, Tim Walton hasn't been able to do it. You mentioned Jair Brown. He had to start the fourth game of his career because Ohio State was down Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock, and Cam Brown. And so they started a true freshman and a redshirt freshman against Wisconsin last year. They've got better numbers this year. So I think you can afford to play more of them because, look what happened in the secondary down the stretch in November and in January, and see if that's what you want to happen again.